What do you mean by learning?
Moving to a different state of awareness, a different state of consciousness. Now, commonly, when people think about learning, when they think about the acquisition of certain kinds of skills or information or knowledge, right? So, let's say if you're thinking about learning in history, it means the acquisition of certain kinds of information, data, information about dates and events. I am giving, in fact, a rather different interpretation to the word learning because I'm saying that the intent of learning should be to move the learner from one state of awareness to another state of awareness. One would think a higher state of awareness, obviously, a higher state of consciousness. Now, I think that that's what learning is. It's not simply the acquisition of data or the acquisition of information, right? There are other ways in which one can amplify the idea of learning because one can think about learning as a process, a manner, a way in which one acquires a body of knowledge about a certain subject. I think that would be another way to really look at learning. And then I'm going
Learning.
to offer a third way. And both the first two ways that I've offered, I think, are perhaps a bit of a departure from a very conventional understanding of it. But I think that one can also think of learning as a conversation. Now, that conversation is not taking place in the ordinary sense of a conversation, but if learning is taking place, for example, let's say in a classroom, usually it takes place in a classroom. There's another set of problems I think associated with that. We can talk about it later on, but usually, at least in the modern setting, learning takes place in a classroom. And then when it takes place in a classroom, it means that there is someone who is imparting that learning and someone who is a recipient of it, and therefore I'm suggesting that we can also think of it as a form of conversation, albeit a certain kind of conversation, right?
Correct,
So
correct,
these are
correct.
some of the ways in which I would start to begin to think of learning.